Roll. Now I give you plenty of warning this time, Nikki. Are you happy?
We are friends. Ouch.
What
Yes,
was that?
we are friends. Ouch. Yes,
We
loved
are
it. Yeah.
friends. Ouch.
Must be another pop reference that I have no idea what
It's from
it
this.
is.
It's from the story we
Yeah,
read.
it was from Stanley Weinbaum's A Martian Odyssey.
Oh,
Don't tell me you didn't
really?
read the Martian Odyssey.
Yeah, I read that yesterday and I completely don't remember. I don't remember a lot of it.
Oh,
So that tells you
hurt.
that already tells you how much I think about the story.
Yeah, it's absolutely distractive. The many eyes aliens seem to repeat or regurgitate some sort of form of what the protagonist
Oh,
Jarvis tells them.
you mean the taiko drum aliens? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
And when the first time he stops them, he tells them, "I mean no harm.
That's
I am
right.
your
That's
friend."
right. I remember now.
And then it says, "We are friends." And it
we
runs
are
out.
friends.
Yes, that's right. We are friends.
Something like that. Anyway, so that seems like a great way to start the podcast. So, Nikki, why don't you tell us what we were reading we were forced to read last week.
I don't think anyone
this
was
time
forced to
I'm
do
the
anything.
one rubbing it in.
So I mean, honestly, the stories, the story happens after the story happens, basically, because
the title of the story. What's
the title of the story? Sorry, my bad. A Martian Odyssey.
By what's
by
his...
Stanley G. Weinbaum.
Right.
And Stanley G. Weinbaum wrote a fantastic story. I think Isaac Asimov said that this was the second Nova. I think that was his quote regarding his writing. The guy had cancer, I think, and he wrote most of the stuff during the time that he was experiencing that terrible disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's absolutely fantastic science fiction. So the actual story happens before the story starts, because all this really is recounting by Jarvis to his crew what has transpired in the days that he has been lost. And jumps from scene to scene, and one of the first things that Jarvis does is he saves this alien named Tweel. And unlike in most other works of the time, which were more about centipede monsters and people being eaten and stuff like that, and aliens coming in to enslave humanity and take all the women and whatever, instead of those motivations, Tweel seemed to be an intelligent, non-threatening ally to our protagonist, and our protagonist saved him because that's the right thing to do in the moment. And then they grow this bond, and they get to experience the the surrounding area of the planet Mars, which is where they're located. This is the time when it was okay imagining that Mars had like an atmosphere and stuff like that. We didn't know that much forward in time. Obviously, we know different things, but still, it's this sort of like completely different world. There is a life form that is basically completely and utterly is made out of silicon instead of like a carbon-based life form like us, which create pyramids through their excrement.
They breathe out. They breathe out silica.
Yeah.
Basically,
but it's waste, isn't it? That's the point.
They are like the literal manifestation of the phrase "shit outbreaks."
Yeah, shit bricks, exactly.
Well, it's not that actually. It breathes out, instead of breathing out carbon dioxide like we do, it breathes out silicon oxide or dioxide, whichever it is.
Yeah,
So
I did not mean
breathes
to. Actually, you took it too far. I did not mean to.
Okay,
imply
yeah.
that
All right,
it's shit.
we're trying to keep this family friendly. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
apologize.
God forgive us. All right,
Oh,
so
no one told me this was family friendly. I'm sorry. I probably have to leave now. Right? If not, I'm going to get kicked off this group.
That was me just being sarcastic. You're free to stay, Cass. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
we'll review your application after the podcast.
Mm.
So, yeah, to continue the story, Jarvis sees all these wonders of Mars, and he also realizes that his companion is smart, and he has to constantly battle everybody else on his crew as he's telling the story that no, this is not just coincidence, there's scientific fact behind this and stuff like that, and it makes sense that this is actually what they meant, and so on and so forth. So they, like a scientist, although they're a chemist, they seem to be like, they seem to know everything about every study. I guess that's what you need to be if you're an astronaut in space exploring Mars. So makes sense. He's very familiar with everything. And he makes this logical argument that Tweel is sentient, good-natured, and someone who can be, the key to some sort of an alliance between humans and these people. And of course, the end of the story I love a lot because it ends at a perfect moment. Basically, through being rescued, Jarvis gets separated with Tweel, and they were inside this giant complex of these "we are friends, ouch" creatures that basically try and run them over, and we don't really understand why they're doing that until right at the end. Jarvis is like, "Yeah, by the way, I stole their shit." He like pulls it out, and I was just like, that's human, all right. Everything else is like, oh gracious, and then finally he's like, "Oh yeah," and I took their stuff.
Yeah, here it is.
It's aces, absolutely aces.
Yeah,
like this is a real human hero right here. Oh yeah, also I stole shit from the aliens. Here it is. Yeah, great story.
Well, what about you, Rob? What do you think of the story? You loved it when you first when we were discussing what story to do. I remember.
Yeah, there was things I'd forgotten actually, like this communication business. Tweel, with next to no knowledge of English, nevertheless uses the few words he gathers from the human being to express quite complex ideas, like 112 is counting 1 + 1 = 2, and no 112 is the thing we're talking about can't count and is not intelligent. That's really quite deep stuff. It's much better than the stories which have the hero communicating in next to no time with the use of telepathy or with the use of some gadget that in no time imprints the alien language onto one's head and that sort of thing.
Yeah, my favorite one of those is like, yes, 112, 2, no 11, 2 + 2 = 4. Yeah, 2 = 4. Yeah, 2 = 4. Which is basically like, yeah, they can think, but they can't really think. I love that he just did that with, numbers. It's fantastic. So good.
What about you, Cass? You were the one who suggested the story, didn't you?
Yes, I recommended this story because I fell in love with it when I was a teenager and stumbled across it. And it was interesting coming back to it because it had very good memories for me. So coming back to this story, I was curious and a little bit apprehensive, actually, about how I would look at this story again. And I'm happy to say that I fell in love with it all over again. Oh, cool. And I think the thing that I think I liked about it is that, again, Weinbaum packed so much into a short story. And usually when there's some story about aliens, you normally have one kind of alien setup, right? This is what the aliens are like, or maybe you have two. But he managed to put in so many different alien species on Mars, and each of them were really interesting in a different way. Right. And his relationship with Tweel, who was, as Nikki said, cooperative, friendly, but you also got the impression that if Twill wanted, he could have killed Jarvis like this, right? And yet they both entities were able to put aside their baser instincts and cooperate together. And there were times, for example, when Twill could have escaped and left Jarvis, yes, to his own devices, but Twill didn't, and stayed by Jarvis, and they battled through the species and everything like that, and I just thought that it had humor, it had compassion, it had a lot of interesting aliens. It was all very logical. Yes, and I assume that Weinbaum also checked what he knew about the Martian atmosphere, because he was only just a little bit off when it came to gravity, right? So he was off by only 2-3 kilos, actually. So I've found the story to be delightful. I do have one of his anthologies, which is packed in a box somewhere. So I'll have to dig that one out and read it again. But yes, still I loved it. I loved it then, and I still love it now. But you, XJ, you said you forgot everything about it, and I'm
yes,
going,
as the
no,
dissenting
so-
voice in this panel.
Yeah,
I found the
okay.
story largely forgettable.
Oh,
About the only thing that stuck in my mind was, quite unfortunately, the shitting bricks thing. Yeah, that I thought was quite interesting because we in unfortunately in a lot of science fiction material we have out there, we rarely explore how different how life forms with very, very different metabolism would function.
excrete. Yeah.
Well, that's that, but I think like just how it would look like and how it would feel like, to bump into one of these creatures. And the closest that we come to in popular culture that I can remember is maybe Aliens. That's the only one that made a really big deal about how their blood is sulfur based and stuff like that, and they breathe a different atmosphere and stuff like that. But aside from that, like, we don't, the thing that really stood out to me is the immense age of this silicon based life form, right? They're talking about 500,000 years full grown, maybe not even
Right.
how the description of the story is 500,000 years. When they bump into it, potentially it is immortal.
Older. Yeah. And running on instinct, right?
Yeah.
No higher cognitive
Yeah.
function. It's just been alive for almost an eternity or whatever.
Like a
Right,
million
and-
years, yeah.
Million years, and it just does it. Interestingly enough, I'll tell you something, and this is for the family friendly part of the show, kids.
Oh,
Did you
fantastic.
know, right, that in Australia there is that big marsupial called a wombat? It kind of looks like a small bear, right? Yeah, and it goes around an awful. When they poop cubes. Yeah,
That
their
I
poop
didn't
is
know.
it's cube shaped. So that's me doing my David Attenborough bit. Back to you.
Okay, well, yeah, so
And now the weather.
And now the weather.
So the weather here is quite rainy. Could also explain a little bit of my mood.
XJ, we'll talk about everything, but Martian Odyssey itself.
The main reason why it's forgettable to me was I thought the whole thing was very convoluted. Like, I had trouble trying to figure out what. So one, the dialogue between the astronauts felt really contrived. Like, it's meant to drive a point. The characters are not real characters. They're just cardboard pieces, meant to. I think it's meant to push the story along. That's number one. They are not real people. Like I just don't feel like they actually have like the only person I can really stood out to me in that entire crew is the French guy, which I thought was German at first.
Yeah, right. So did I actually. I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I just get
boy.
I just get a feeling like the author wasn't like really. That's not his focus. I feel like his focus was describing this his vision of Mars, which is fair enough, and I thought. And this would be right. This is the kind of story that's just like right up my alley, because I much prefer to learn about fantastical landscapes and stuff like that. The unfortunate thing for me is I think he tried to pack too much.
There was a lot. There was a lot in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so you have this intelligent species. Which Twill represents on Mars. Except, wait a minute, is he really from Mars? Because very soon we come to another civilization, which is the running drums, which I thought was which I thought was a little bit like the Morlocks from the Time Machine. Except that their purpose is completely incomprehensible. That's it. And then I was thinking to myself, like, how on earth would two intelligent species completely fundamentally different from each other coexist on one planet?
Because it's so old. Because the planet's so old. It's had time for so many different things to happen, I suppose.
Could be. But then I was also thinking, like, if Twill's people are so clever, why am I not seeing more signs of their civilization? Like, because like when the author was describing Mars, like most of it is just like completely empty. And they made a big deal out of it too. Like there's just nothing new on Mars. There's like a few bits of plants that everybody's seen. But then we came upon this Twill guy, this ostrich, and all of a sudden he's like this super intelligent thing that no one else on Earth has seen before. And then I'm thinking to myself, so where are the signs of all that intelligence? Where are the signs of all the civilization? And
there are some answers to your questions in the sequel, Valley of Dreams.
Oh, if that's a sequel, then that's a different thing. See, but I'm judging the Martian Odyssey by itself. So
There's a sequel? Hold on.
Oh
There
yeah,
we go.
yeah. There's a sequel. Yeah.
Well, guys, it was nice to have this podcast. I'm just gonna go.
And read the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can enjoy yourself, because I'll tell you something. I'm completely I think this is the first time that I'm completely opposed to what XJ said in my entire life. I'm so in disagreement. Really, like, I really love the story. And to me, the more random and interesting circumstances that were shown to us through Jarvis and what was going on, I was like, okay, to the next strange, interesting thing. Okay, to the next one. Let's go. Give me as many as you can. I don't know, you only have 15 pages. I don't care. Give me more. And I was really sad that we ended on the drum aliens. I thought there was like one more crazy thing, and it never came. So if there's a sequel, oh my god, I need to see more crazy, more crazy stuff that's in this world. What an absolute!
I mean, I'm glad that you liked it. Yeah, it was just, to me, it just like felt very disjointed, like someone who's high writing it, and actually
Maybe it was the drugs he was on for his cancer treatment.
Exactly. I didn't know he was. I did feel like when he was writing it, the emphasis on cancer, cure for cancer, was really odd. But then when we have the context of him having cancer, then it kind of makes sense. Further also because like X-ray and gamma radiation being cure for cancer is I don't know. That sounds like it might cause cancer instead of curing it. Like a generic burst of it instead of a very focused beam to kill
But
the
you know,
cancer cells.
I mean, this is not pure hard science fiction. We're talking about space opera here. Rob, back me up on this one. We're talking old solar system. Yeah, there's so much romance in this story.
What can I say? Like, I love science fiction.
It's not an Arthur C. Clarke. It's not an Arthur C. Clarke.
What can I say? I love science fiction, but I can't stand most science fiction movies just because. Like, I'll tell you one thing. So Pacific Rim, I don't know if anyone of you has seen that show. It was terrible. Like,
it was horrible. My God!
I was sitting through. I was sitting through the show.
64 hours. I will never get back. Right? Am I right?
64 hours.
That's what it felt like.
Okay.
64 hours of my life. I am never going to get back watching Pacific Rim. And me going, oh my God.
When I was in the theater and I was looking at the thing, the whole time I was just thinking of the engineering aspect of it. I was thinking to myself like, a 50-foot high robot would never be able to engineer that because the stress on the legs would crumple the metal. And then I was thinking like the way they had the helicopters bring the ferry the robots out in the sea and then dropping them, the capillary
I think I must have fallen asleep by then.
Would have busted the robot the minute they drop in, and I was just thinking about all that. And I was like, this makes no sense.
Rob, so have you watched Pacific Rim? Rob,
I hated it.
You hated it, but I'm sure you hated it for different reasons than I.
Yes, you did. It was so much overblown hype. It was such sloppy writing. There were so many holes in the plot. I mean, it was an insult to sit there and watch that and credit it with any kind of importance, entertainment, innovation, or anything other than stereotypical cliches. Right, masquerading as something profound. Cardboard cutouts masquerading as profound people, wasting 2 hours of my time on the big screen. I mean, seriously, right? Yeah, for whatever reason, as you said. Yeah, XJ, different reasons to me.
Different reasons, but it wasn't an enjoyable film to me. Just like this one, because for me, when I was going through, and this could just be my mindset. You know, it just could be the way I do. I see the world and I deal with things. I was reading through that stuff and I'm like trying to piece everything together in my mind, and I'm like, this makes no sense. If it was something like Out of the Silent Planet, like Lewis Carroll, where it's just so obvious from the start.
C.S. Lewis. I thought that was C.S. Lewis.
Sorry, yes, C.S. Lewis, not Lewis Carroll. That was Alice in Wonderland. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. C.S. Lewis, where it is so obvious right from the start that this is a fantastical version of Mars without any real, without any pretense of being grounded in some kind of reality, then that would have been different. But there was that slight attempt at being realistic, Cass, about the Mars, actually just ruined it for me, because then it felt to me like it was just not enough.
It was just romance. To me, it was space opera romance. It was
fair enough. It did give me a John Carter of Mars feeling when I was reading it, and that was kind of that romance was there. Like exploring a new frontier and stuff like that, and I guess it would have worked better for me if it was novel this length.
Yes, okay, I get that. I'm so sorry, because I just fell in love with that. But Rob, you seem on the verge of wanting to chip in here.
Yeah,
I
because
think
I'm
what
just
what I've
like,
got to say is, I think XJ doesn't really click with the kind of episodic nature of the story. The fact that just one thing after another thing happens, and Kaz, you and I like that aspect of it. So it's
And now
partly,
Nikki too.
yeah.
yes.
So I want to say that another aspect that's really, really important to me, and probably was taken for granted by the author and by his readers, so that it's actually much more a plus factor now than it was when it was written, is that it's actually real exploration. Nowadays, when you want to explore a planet, you send out space probes to orbit it and land on it and study it by remote control until if we actually went there, there'd be nothing left for us to do or see.
There's nothing visceral, right?
Yeah, think of what's been done to Mars now. It will probably have rovers crawling all over it, and there'll be no surprises left unless they're lurking in some cavern somewhere. Whereas in the 1934, when this story came out, you could happily read about people going to Mars and seeing it for the very first time, and just nosing around and having a look and seeing what's there, and that's tremendous. And doing that, it's quite likely that the experience would be episodic if Mars has got a sort of ramshackle biosphere, like in fact the Earth to some extent has, with lots of different environments and lots of different creatures. So that's tremendous for me.
Well,
And not only that, it's the other thing is his writing style, right? Weinbaum's writing style was just so kind of casual, especially next to, oh God, the stiffness of an Isaac Asimov, right? The pedantic nature of an Arthur C. Clarke, the sexual dysfunction of a Robert Heinlein. Okay, so what I really liked about Weinbaum was that it was just fun. Right. And it wasn't as stiff and rigid and humorless and inflexible as an Asimov story. And and even Asimov's characters, what was the Susan, the one from the iRobot stories? Right. I mean, you don't need to tell us that she's colorless and has no sense of humor. All you need to do is read Asimov's dialogue that he puts in her mouth, right? Yeah.
I think one of the things that really worked for me in the story was the fact that I just imagined myself being Jarvis. For all the intents and purposes, I was Dick Jarvis, and when I read it, I felt like I'm recounting the story to all these schmucks, right? And I'm telling them this is what's going on. This is what happened. This is what I just experienced, and there's something. How is it called? Very ordinary, but also extraordinary about campfire stories that people do and used to do for thousands of years. And to me, that's kind of how this story is actually framed. It's framed as this telling by this man, like what has transpired, like over a campfire to these people, telling them, listen, this is what's out there. This is what I just experienced. And all they're like, no way. And he's like, yeah, I'm telling you, I saw this because this, and that. And like, you thought something wrong. Like, no, like, listen, it's crazy, right? I think there's something so visceral about that feeling. And really, really immersed me in it. But I understand all XJ's points. And to each his own. That's the like really the end of it. If he didn't like it, if XJ didn't like it, then he didn't like it. That's the end.
It's not that I didn't like it.
I'm not trying to put words in you.
It's more like it just made no impression on me whatsoever. I'm indifferent.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's great.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah. Even though I'm deeply hurt, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I've had this conversation with Rob many times I think, where
Just recommended
it's
you something
actually
good.
he's wondering what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the worst thing for an artist to have is not criticisms or that people dislike it. Is indifference.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Oscar Wilde, right? The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about,
Yeah. For an
right?
artist,
Yeah.
that's
So,
absolutely true. Indifference. Like you're shouting out into this
Voice.
void,
yeah.
the space of
Yeah.
nothingness. No one cares.
Mm.
And that's
So-
pretty much how I felt about the Martian Odyssey.
Does The Valley of Dreams also have a sequel?
No.
Okay,
no.
that's it. This is the end.
Yeah, he wrote quite a few interplanetary stories. He wrote a couple of connected stories set on Venus with the same characters.
With the same characters, okay.
Yeah, not the
So
same
there is a
characters as
continuation.
in this one. I mean, the same characters as in each other.
Oh, if we're talking romantic, okay, so not the XJ, let's get down to brass tacks and put some reality into this story, for God's sake, guys. Not that, right? But if we're talking about
It's about being internally consistent, you guys.
the romance of space, then I think that if I'll have to read Weinbaum's Venus stories, because to me, the master of the Venus story would have to be Henry Kuttner. Right? Yeah.
Yes,
if
Clash by
we're
Night,
talking,
yeah.
Clash by Night. Oh my God, that's another one. Yeah.
As soon as I finished the story, I kind of wanted to see if there's actually places or like what like what he written about, and I found like a Martian map with like an outcropping of where the crash site was and stuff like that. So like there's interesting stuff about it on the internet.
That was another point of dissonance for me, because I was pretty sure that he is describing the actual geography of Mars when he was talking about flying over this valley or what, and then name dropping the valleys. I mean, I didn't go to the extent of pulling out a map and checking it.
No,
and that's why I was
actually,
that's why I was thinking like, okay, if you're like if you're gonna really follow the geography of Mars, then it doesn't make sense to have all this heretofore civilizational thing that was just like not that there were no signs whatsoever of. And he described some of the valleys as dead and barren, and then I was like, but that's clearly not the field he was trying to aim for. That there is a lot of life on Mars, plenty of life. So yeah, that was the other point of dissonance for me.
Yeah, that's true. There was a contradiction. There was a contradiction in there.
No, I felt like it's just
to take in all in one go. Besides the names,
You'll
the
have to
names-
reread it, XJ.
Yeah,
No, I refuse. It's like the long walk for me.
the names in Martian geography were from Schiaparelli, who gave those names in late 19th century. So that was early enough to believe that Mars had a breathable atmosphere and perhaps lots of life on it.
Fair enough.
The vegetation patches that he saw, right? That people actually drew maps of, where it seemed that Mars actually had seasons, because it would get darker in regions, and then during certain times of the year, it would seem to recede as if vegetation. So, there was a lot of speculation and a lot of what looked like to be pretty hard evidence at that time from images that people drew through telescope observation. So it was a much more romantic time, XJ.
It's
Yes.
true. I am not romantic at all.
I'm just contemplating my life choices because it actually just reminded me that I read The Long Walk twice. I've read The Martian Odyssey a couple of times, but it was much more enjoyable to read it one or more times than the other thing I mentioned. In insofar to say as I think maybe it's just not something that you have to be in the mood for it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't come to you the same way. Actually, I'm not sure why you don't like it. As far as like logic is concerned, I don't know.
I mean, again, I want to stress that I don't dislike it. If I really dislike it, it would be very clear in my mind why I disliked it, and I would be able to I would remember the story. The trouble is I don't really remember the story. I'm like really indifferent to it. So like I only read the story yesterday, and already the details are already starting to fade in my mind. Like I aside from Jarvis, which I don't even remember the name of until Nikki, you brought it up. I do remember Twill. I don't recall any of the other the names of any of the other astronauts. The only other one I remember was the French guy, which I thought was German. And I really don't remember much details of the story at all, except the sand monster. Yeah.
The silicon
creature that I thought was very mysterious and very interesting, because the motive of the creature is completely inscrutable. We can say that it's not intelligent, but it is also a very mysterious creature, because like it's been around for 500,000 years.
At least.
Yeah. Conceivably could be around for much longer than that. So the immensity of the age alone is a mystery, and the fact that it just keeps doing the same thing it did over and over again, building this pyramid cairns. I thought they were graves at first. So that was really the only thing that stood out to me. I forgot about the running drums completely. I thought it was just like really odd. Yeah.
And the black ropey thing with tentacles.
Yeah.
Exactly. I completely forgot about that too. Yeah. So unfortunately, that's how it is. But why don't you guys talk more about why you like it, aside from the romance? Like, so it sounds to me like you felt you were there, Nikki.
Yeah, that's right.
What were you wondering about? What were you wondering about when you're picturing yourself on this version of Mars? What would you like?
Well,
what would you have liked the author? Where would you have liked the author bring you to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wanted the journey to last for about like months, probably. That's actually a question. In the Valley of Dreams, is it the same kind of crazy stuff that you get to see, or is it a bit more structured? The sequel
might be a little bit more structured. It's a long time since I read it, but it does actually. I think it goes into Tweel's the civilization of which Tweel used to be a part, or his people used to be a part. It tells you more about the decayed civilization of Mars, anyway.
Oh, now do you remember that this was Weinbaum's first short story, XG? So he hadn't had built up any canon before a Martian Odyssey, which may explain the, if you like, roller coaster kind of impression that you're getting, right? Where he can't just settle. Yeah, he can't just settle. He's got to go herring off on another adventure, right? He's got to go and describe something else. And maybe it could be because it was his first sail. And actually, I thought for a first sail, oh my God, I would be so proud to have that as my first sail.
Fair enough.
Something of that caliber, you know.
To answer your question, XJ, I was wondering what would be more, more interesting to see that he didn't show. Probably fauna. He described a lot of creatures that lived there, but fauna of Mars was not as much. What's it called?
Flora.
Like just
Flora, yes.
Flora.
Flora. Did I say
of
fauna?
Mars. You said fauna.
Yeah, my apologies. Thank you. With the flora of Mars, to see more of that. Maybe some weird crystallized flowers or something made out of silicone. I don't know. That would be crazy. If I were
of stuff.
What would you say? Rob?
Walking carpet of grass.
Of grass or something
Yeah,
that
but
looked like grass.
I mean like like spending like a long time with the information, just like he did with the silicone monster, like a really big garden that he gets to see all weird stuff in, or something, like an oasis of sorts. I really enjoyed all the gravity talk and the idea of how the scientist is trying to put facts together and understand that this alien is actually cooperating with him on multiple levels and stuff. That was really interesting to me because it made me think, would I get it? Like this, like is there a leap of logic that I could connect, and so on and so forth. And a lot of the times it was, yeah, I mean, you can figure that out, I guess. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Go on, Rob.
It's good that it somehow works very well that the narration is in the form of reportage rather than happening as it happens sort of thing. It's told in retrospect, and for some reason that works. It gives it a cozy feeling. You know that Jarvis must have got back safely because he's there talking about it. So you don't actually worry, is he going to escape? You concentrate on what he's saying. And for some reason that works. A bit risky way of telling a story, but he gets away with it.
Well, it would also have necessitated a much longer story if he was describing the actual journey as it happens.
Yeah, he would have to have cut out quite a few alien species, I think, if he had wanted to make that perspective work. Yeah.
What's really fascinating to me is, it's such a different composition of what you would imagine Mars to be like in current fiction. Someone is doing, because we know so many different facts about it now. The sense of wonder is really transcending. I wish that I knew less about how Mars is to be more, like, to believe more into anything that is said there. But unfortunately, with the current science knowledge,
Mars is a big disappointment. There's no doubt.
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't it just? That was my conclusion too when I finished the story. I was like, no, we have rocks actually. Really red rocks.
If only. Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess that's the tragedy of science. That the more it illuminates, the less mystery there is. Less places for mysteries to go.
Yeah. I think Pluto actually was quite good when the probe went past it in 2015. That was the year, I think. That showed quite a good Pluto. No Plutonians, of course, but
it did have a heart-shaped spot on it.
Did it?
Right. It did. It had a heart-shaped plane or something.
Really?
On Pluto. Yeah, which is why,
How nice it would be if they send the probe a little closer and found out that somebody has spray paint graffiti on Pluto in the shape of a...
Now, you see, I don't think that that's possible, XJ, because, first of all, the temperature at which an aerosol freezes...
Who's being brass tacky now?
Oh, boy. It's like a showdown of hard sci-fi. What is going on here?
Yeah.
Rob, to make it truly go back to the Neverland camp. What did you find this whimsical story? Was it whimsical for you, as it was for me?
Yeah,
was it as good for you?
Ages ago, in long lost youth, I read it and I was really really impressed with it, and then I read it again, and I saw new things with it. I think probably my mind is still very childlike. I tend to accept stories in the spirit in which they're written, and it's a long time before I spot any inconsistencies or anything to say against them. If the story grabs me beyond a certain critical point, then that's that. I love it unconditionally. You know, I don't sort of nitpick. It's only very much later that I start to think, and if I spot anything that's so-called wrong with it, it ceases because of the unconditional love aspect. Instead of saying, "Oh, now this is a flaw in the story," I think, "Aha! What a clever author to have got away with doing this." You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Although now you bring up an interesting point, which is why does that work? And that works for me as well. That's exactly right. It describes a lot of my reading experience. And yet, when it comes to watching movies, I have to say I tend to XJ's side, which is that most of the science fiction movies that you see are crap.
Right. Well, I get out of that problem by not seeing them, you see.
Oh, you see, that's what I know what you mean. I've gone to that. Yeah, I've done that now myself.
One is written by artists, and others are written by wage slaves.
Whoa.
I mean, he does have a point. You know, the options, if you're a screenwriter, you're going to get such a teeny tiny piece of the pie that it's almost within sample error. It's sample error size.
Most scripts gets rewritten by producers and other people who have nothing to do with. That's the thing. If you're a screenwriter who can dictate stuff, that's very different. But most people are not like that. Most people don't have that power.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
That's okay.
And I'm saying that because I'm literally in the VFX industry.
Then tell us what's the reality.
So the producers don't really have any input because they are on the production side of it. So unless you're a big shot like Spielberg,
Michael Bay, Steven Spielberg,
they call themselves.
Who is the guy who did Serenity?
Josh Whedon. Josh
Whedon.
So those
Don't
guys.
Talk to me about George Lucas.
Those guys call themselves executive producers, but that's a different thing. So when you're talking about production, the production side of it is mostly coordination, logistics, that side of stuff. Executive producers are a little bit different. I don't know why they call themselves EP, because they are literally they have the same clout, if not more, than the showrunner, which typically tends to be the director. So it's most of the time the screenwriters write their section of the scenes, and the showrunner is the one that makes a creative decision. And you can see that happening in when it goes south, typically, like with Game of Thrones. The two co-directors who started making less than ideal creative decisions. So the production side of it actually has very little creative input. They usually don't have an creative input because they take care of the
paperwork.
Exactly, paperwork. So yeah.
So would you say that this stereotype comes from sort of executive producers kind of situation, like Spielberg?
So to be honest, so first of all, that is a very high level. I've never seen an executive producer in my entire career. That's how high level they are. And so I don't actually know what kind of relationship they have with the showrunners. It could be if they exercise any creative input at all, I think it's usually like budget wise. We can't do this because there's not enough money, not enough time. Gotta push this out. You know, we gotta this. We will run into the law. We will run into legal problems if we say this. You know, those are not decisions that those are decisions that are kind of out of the hands of the people working, because like if a material of a show is still going to veer off into past PG-13, then it's a very different show and it requires a different rating, and then the money you put in is a lot less. So those are very hard practical decisions to make. Yeah.
So then why do screenplays suck?
I mean, it really depends, right? Because there are some shows that are very good, well written, and they are also written in the same way by committee, basically. Cass is trying to think of a show that is good, right? Yeah. I mean, I can think of a few that really stood out to me. The Dark Knight, the very first one, that was okay. I was quite impressed with it. Joker, the new Joker is more of an independent film, I feel.
It has a very artistic vibe, yes.
Yeah, it's a I feel like it's a drama story that cloaked itself in superhero story just so it could get the funding.
Yeah, it's true.
Rob is completely bored with the movie conversation.
Yeah, no more movies. But thank you for educating me, actually, on this topic. The overall let's say takeaway I got from A Martian Odyssey is flight of fantasy of someone who saw a very interesting and different picture of Mars. And hearing that it is his first story, bravo! What a great way to start your career. I'm gonna read the Valley of Dreams.
Nice. Are we gonna do an episode on the Valley of Dreams?
Why not? Let's do it.
Geez.
I mean, but you don't you hate it?
Oh,
I don't
no.
want to make you read. Like
I suppose it's payback for the long walk, huh?
I mean, if you don't remember anything about the first story, how are you gonna even try the sequel? You're gonna be like so confused what's going on. Like, who are these people?
So tortured
Yes,
going through the
indeed.
second story. Yeah.
Indeed.
I think we'll put it on the back burner whether or not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. We already do have other things that we have lined up, and which is a great segue into the short story challenge that we have for Cass.
Oh, right. Right, chaps. Okay, who's doing it? Who's coming up with the challenge? Who is going to verbalize the challenge?
Nikki,
Oh,
of course.
Shit. All right. Yeah, well,
because
Cass,
I'm in a delegating mood today.
Yeah, kind of mood. Okay.
The delegators.
you dedicated to me. I have a extra. Yeah. So we thought about it for a bit, and basically the blurb we came up with is as follows. 2 knights are at a tavern, enjoying the end of a long tourney, unknowing that one is planning to kill the other. There you go. I'll send you the blurb.
Okay.
That's what you got to work with.
Right, I can see that. And what genre, guys? Did you decide on that?
No, it's up to you.
Oh, is it?
If you want us to come up with one on the podcast, we can. But we decided to give you more freedom,
right.
like it was given to me.
It's best to leave it to Kaz, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. 3 weeks, 2000.
10th
10th of October. Okay, and 2,500 words. Yes?
Well, by 10th of October, we have to talk about it on a podcast. So don't send it
Oh,
on
I
the
see.
Sunday.
Oh, okay, cool. I look forward to this. Should be good.
Hmm.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, you're welcome.
Why did you say it like that, actually?
Because I'm sure, I was sure I detected sarcasm in Cass's. Thank you.
No, that's not true at all. I was charmed.
Uh huh.
I choose to believe her. So
Yes,
I can
exactly.
sleep at
You
night.
see? What Nikki said.
As a, as a human being, sometimes you just have to accept things, and then you can sleep at night.
Right.
So listen, I do have a question. I do have a question,
Uh-oh.
and it kind of sort of goes back to a Martian Odyssey, right?
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, good. And here is the thing, is that you three are ostensibly gents. Okay, I know, gender is a
Ostensibly.
social construct.
Okay.
Right, that's why. Okay, because this wokeism. But let's just say you three are gents. I'll probably get pilloried somewhere for saying it. But what the hell? And I'm a female. I read a lot of science fiction. I grew up on a lot of science fiction. But you'll notice that overwhelmingly, all of the protagonists are all male. So how am I supposed to read a story like a Martian Odyssey? And I'm reminded of that because Nikki said, oh, well, I was Jarvis. I was there. It was like it was me telling the story, right? Yes? Yeah,
'Cause
it
I'm
was
the
you,
best.
right? Yeah, right, okay. Because he's the chemist, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and you sort of think, okay, well, that is how. And XJ, if he could be bothered to remember anything, could also put himself in the position of one of the crewmates, and
No.
Rob could position himself. No, I mean in terms of
Right.
even if
You're
could,
actually just talking
right?
about being able to slip into the shoes of the.
The shoes of the character itself. How am I supposed to slip into the shoes of the character?
Too difficult. I mean, you can read Watership Down and slip yourself into the shoes of a rabbit. So,
Oh,
That's
Jesus
true.
Christ, I'm not going to read Watership Down again. That's for damn sure.
Cass, it's a very good question. And I'm not sure how you could achieve it for both sexes at the same time, or however many sexes there are, let's say, because you have to predetermine what is the character at the beginning. Otherwise, that's a bit hard,
Yeah.
Unless you want to make it a mystery and just use like he, she, it, they, like.
But you see,
Z.
coming back to Watership Down, Rob, the rabbits were male rabbits and female rabbits, right?
yeah, true.
Right,
True.
So again, you've got that bifurcation, right? So I'm just thinking, it's just something, because all you three write. So it's just a question that I just want to put in there. Yes?
I think it's that the truth is that the magic of writing is that all these distinctions just simply do not prevent the reader from getting inside the skin of somebody else. For example, I'm reading Jane Eyre, and obviously the character is female, and I find no difficulty in empathizing at all. I don't think that the sex of the character matters as far as empathy is concerned. All that matters is that the story should be psychologically convincing, or even just merely interesting. That's all that matters. There
So
are some
character, I mean, with Jane Eyre, we're talking character. So you're saying character trumps gender, right? In this particular, because you're able to relate to Jane Eyre, right?
Yeah, I suppose so, but it's more to it than that. I mean, I'm able to relate to even cardboard characters of whatever sex, because the situation creates its own interest. I think of C.L. Moore's story, Black God's Kiss and Black God's Shadow. That has a female protagonist. I don't know if you read those. It doesn't, there's no problem there. And also The Bright Illusion. That's another of her stories.
So do either of you other two have problems with reading from a female protagonist perspective?
So for me, that's a great question. So first of all, when I write, I basically cop to the fact that I can't write a good female character that a woman can identify with. I basically cop to that. And I just push. I write as best as I can, but the truth is it's very difficult for me to write a character that a woman would be able to just slip her shoes herself into. But if I get hung up over that, then my story cannot continue, and so I basically just have to push through, Second thing is, actually, I find it very difficult to slip myself into female characters most of the time. Yeah. Because so like the exception, and I'm putting it in quotes, because I don't think they are actually real female characters. The exception would be characters like Ripley from Aliens, but honestly, I feel Ripley is a guy with female clothing. I'm not sure.
I'll have to think about that one for a while. Okay.
Because you okay, let me rephrase that. Ripley is like a very generic character stripped of all gender characteristics. She's just there to solve a problem.
Got a point.
Right. So and actually that's a very male characteristic. And that's why I defaulted to Ripley being actually a guy. And
Role of Attention Podcast does not in any way, shape, imply that women can't solve problems.
We always seem to get into these sorts of little conundra, don't we?
So I always thought like Ripley wasn't what a female main character should be like, and I thought and I was I was gonna say I felt myself proven right when I watched Wonder Woman, because Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman resonated with a lot of women. I could see that, and I thought, okay, that's probably a really properly written and portrayed female main character.
Okay, I think I'll have to watch Wonder Woman.
And when I compared the two, like Wonder Woman was also kicking ass, but she's kicking it in a very different way from Ripley is kicking it.
Okay, good point. Okay.
I don't approve of cruelty to donkeys, actually.
Fair enough.
Yes, leave them donkeys alone. Okay, fair enough. Nikki, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this question?
Well, I have a very different answer. Because I was raised by women, I have the dangerous illusion that I somewhat understand them.
I agree. Sorry. I'm happy to write a female character. I'm happy to write a male character. I'm happy to write a character who is an alien and has a very different understanding of what that even is, or a monster in the fantasy world. And I think that probably comes from the fact that I had to do it so many hundred times, and not because of writing, but because of my hobby. I'm a dungeon master, and I've been a dungeon master for 14 years, and it's going to be 15 next year. And in the game Dungeons and Dragons, you have to become everything.
as as the dungeon master. You have the responsibility to run every single aspect of the world, from economics to hungry orphans on the street. Everything is under your control, and whatever the party interacts with, they're not interacting with a computer or a sheet of paper that has information on it. Really, they're interacting with you, and whatever you've written down to help yourself will never be enough. You always have to slip in into whatever you are trying to portray. So I guess I'm just lucky with my experience, because it's taught me a lot of how to get into character. So I don't have this issue. I could probably slip into any character if it's written in a way where I can really connect to the character and to the protagonist.
Interesting. Thank you, gents, for your opinions. Very interesting.
Okay.
I think it's a non-problem mostly, except that, like XJ, I can't really write about very convincingly about female characters. But actually, I probably don't write very convincingly about anybody. It's more to do with the character and the situation being one kind of gestalt with me. So I don't actually depend so much on analysis of character.
That's a very good point. And frankly, I also just cop to the fact that characters are not my strong suit. Yeah. And the focus that I put my writing into is the environment and the atmosphere and the creatures that roam in that environment. Which is a lot like the Martian Odyssey, to bring the topic back. But for some reason, that particular story didn't click with me.
Didn't resonate with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think it seems like the conversation about the Martian Odyssey has come to a very natural end. And I think we can safely call this a conclusion of our discussion. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right,
So what
guys.
What do we have next week, XJ? What story are we talking about next week?
It was Nightfall by Isaac Asimov.
Right, that was my suggestion. Oh shit.
Oh, paybacks a
Yeah,
Sorry,
because Isaac Asimov is very stiff, right, and colorless and
colorless.
just very boring.
I know. I didn't say boring. I did say stiff, inflexible, rigid, without character, without nuance. But I didn't say boring.
No.
There we go. Okay.
Colorless is a good word because he's very monochrome. But a lot of good writers are monochrome. They're not into sensuous, colorful descriptions, but they're still good.
The best, for me, the best writer is one that I actually have no truck with his foreign policy pronouncements, and I detest what he stands for. But
Who?
damn it, he's a great writer.
Oh.
Salman Rushdie.
Aha. Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
sounds like a very interesting thing to pursue in the future. Anyway, so we have come to the end of the podcast. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening. If you like the Martian Odyssey, please leave a comment. And if you hate it like me, yay! I have a buddy.
And also leave a comment. So I can respond to it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. End of the podcast. Signing off.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.